हर तरफ फिक्र को दौड़ा के थकाया हमने। कोई दीने मुहम्मद सा न पाया हमने।
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to Balance. Mental health is the foundation of our well-being. On today's program, we will examine ways that we can improve our self-esteem, build self-confidence, and identify resources that are available to us during this journey. We will also discuss ways that we can identify, treat, and support these mental health challenges. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that in this program, we will not be providing professional help. Rather, we encourage our viewers to speak to their own physicians. Joining me today are my guests, Dr. Nazia Nighat Sahiba. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
And Dr. Roomana Ansar Sahiba. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
So before we begin our discussion today, let's go to the word on the street and listen to what people had to say when we asked them, what affects your self-confidence?
Honestly, social media affects my self-confidence. Specifically Instagram, just because it's all about images. One thing that helps build my self-confidence is definitely having good people around me. Friends that that I can go to if I have issues, that are willing to support me and listen to me.
I think the thing that affects my self-confidence the most would be the people around me. I find that when I'm with my friends or when I have a lot of positive influences, it boosts my mood. A lot of the times when I felt the most down and the most depressed was when I was isolated, or when I was in periods of my life where everyone around me was too busy to hang out, or I didn't have a lot going on.
I'd say just a general ability to be able to accomplish goals can really make or break sort of my self-confidence. So if I set my mind on, achieving a certain grade in a class, or, achieving a certain weight loss, a certain diet, if I'm able to achieve those things, then my self-confidence improves. And if I'm not able to, then it definitely takes a hit.
Surely the people that we surround ourselves with really do influence the way that we think and then the way that we behave. And if we surround ourselves with people who are stable and supportive, then it's going to have an impact on our positive outlook, right?
Exactly.
So the topic is lack of self-esteem, lack of self-confidence today. Let's start by talking about the definition. Roomana, let me ask you, what do we mean when we talk about self-esteem?
By definition, self-esteem would be defined as simply how you feel about yourself or how you would judge your own worth. Or you could also say self-esteem is the opinion you have about yourself.
Nazia, what do you think?
So as Roomana has mentioned, that this is the opinion about ourselves. So this opinion can be positive or negative. So self-esteem can be healthy or low. So when our self-esteem is healthy, so we tend to see ourselves and our lives in general in a more positive way. But when our self-esteem is low, so we see ourselves in a more critical and negative light, and we feel we're not able to handle the challenges the life throws at us. And if the low self-esteem is not dealt in a timely and proper manner, it can lead to other mental health illnesses like depression, anxiety, etc.
And I think that's a really good point that you mentioned about addressing them in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm.
So when we do talk about lack of self-esteem or losing self-confidence or even developing it, it's not something that happens overnight. It's more of a journey.
Mm-hmm.
So where does it start, Roomana?
I would say most of the self-esteem issues tend to at least begin in the childhood. We know today that a lot of mental health issues could start early in the childhood. Children tend to take a lot of influence from the environment they're in. and if they're treated with negative emotions, if there's too much neglect, abuse of any kind, if there's a lot of criticism and we are focusing too much on their weaknesses and things that they need to improve, and there's not enough appreciation and encouragement about their strengths and about their positives, this could all lead to mental health issues, lack of self-confidence in the children. It could also lead to personality disorders and could complicate situation. We also know that sometimes academic performance could also have an impact on a child's self-esteem, and if they're not very strong academically, as a result they could develop low self-esteem issues.
Yeah, I completely agree that mostly it starts in the childhood, but it can start at any stage of the life depending on the underlying triggers, like teachers, siblings, family, friends. Media play a very strong role in developing the positive and negative opinions about ourselves. So if someone is constantly getting a message that he or she is not good enough, so then they feel that they are not able to handle the life stresses in a good and proper way, and also they feel that they're not able to live up to the expectations of others and their own. And other stressful situations in the life can also have a big impact on the self-esteem, like relationship breakdowns, financial issues. So it can start at that stage too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right in that the messages that we absorb on a daily basis from the people around us goes a long way in developing or deteriorating our self-esteem. So before we continue our discussion, let's hear more on what people identify as the root causes of low self-esteem and what can help us build it.
I think low self-esteem comes from a lot of underlying issues. A lot of people that I know in my personal life who have low self-esteem went through a lot of bullying in their childhood. They went through a lot of appearance issues. Some of them even had eating disorders. So I find that self-esteem is a huge reflection of how you grew up, support systems around you, and overall like how you view yourself, obviously. I think the biggest thing is figuring out what's causing you to feel insecure about yourself. For me, a lot of it was my experience. Being in a really competitive field, I felt intimidated, especially when I started university, comparing myself to others. What I kind of did to overcome that was to start doing more work in my field, was to start studying more. So I think that people really need to zero in on what their problem is and just try to focus on fixing it rather than focusing on the problem itself.
I think once you start to, if you're not able to consistently meet the goals that you set for yourself, then it definitely takes it on your self-esteem. And whether it's because the goals being set are too high or whether there are other factors, I think not being able to achieve goals can really set people back. I would say set achievable, realistic goals, even if it's something small, like, going to every class that you have that week is a realistic goal that people can do, and then from there sort of see where that success takes you.
Shirley, the experiences that we have in our childhood, as we've been discussing, definitely set the stage for how we are navigating then these issues of self-esteem and self-confidence as we go through life. So let me ask you then, Roomana, how do we recognize the signs and symptoms in somebody who might be battling low self-esteem, especially in children?
So speaking of children, we sometimes see that children with low self-esteem could become more quiet and socially withdrawn sometimes. Now, we're not assuming that everybody who's quiet and shy would necessarily have a self-esteem issue. Sometimes children with low self-esteem would come out as there's lack of motivation in doing new things and signing up for things. There could be lack of confidence. And that could be a really downward spiral, Munaza. It could lead to failure in academics initially, and it could set them up for further failure in life.
So in addition to being socially withdrawn, we can also notice that children who are developing the low self-esteem or going through the low self-esteem issue, they start to avoid the things which they feel challenging to them, and they stop to try new things. So all the mothers need to recognize these early signs of the low self-esteem so that they can help their child in a proper and timely manner. And Munaza, in my opinion, teachers and the mothers are the first persons who can recognize and see these initial signs of the low self-esteem. And if they have a good mental health education, they can recognize and help the child in a proper and timely manner. Because children who suffers through low self-esteem, and if it's not dealt in a proper manner, later in life they develop unhelpful habits like smoking, drinking, drug abuse as a way of coping.
Very true. Right. And I think it's important, just to reiterate what you just said, is that we're talking, when we talk about social withdrawal or lack of verbal expression, we're talking about it when it happens in somebody, if it's out of character. And then it might actually signal some signs of low self-esteem or self-confidence issues, if it may. So how do you counsel patients who may approach you? What are some ways to address this, to lead somebody out of this downward spiral?
So when we're talking about treating people with low self-esteem, it is important to remember that we are trying to help these people improve their own image about themselves. We are trying to help them think better of themselves, get them out of this downward spiral. We have to help them recognize their own strengths and positive traits. We have to help build them up and support them. Professional help is definitely needed. That could be your family physician in the community. It could be a counselor or a psychotherapist. It could be also in the form of formal psychotherapy, especially CBT. I would like to mention cognitive behavioral therapy is an excellent form of psychotherapy that could help people improve their own perspective about themselves and get them out of habit of negative thinking. There's another important resource that I would like to point out to all the parents who have children enrolled in schools, colleges, or universities. Most of the school systems have help and support available for kids who might be dealing with low self-esteem or anxiety or depression. It could be bullying issues. So if parents find or they recognize that their child is struggling, all they have to do is just ask for help, and their child would be connected to a social worker, or in some cases psychologists and counselors.
Right. I think, just to reiterate once again, the important message is that we really do encourage people who are suffering or know somebody who is suffering from these mental health challenges to seek professional help. And if you feel like you're not at that stage where you're ready to reach out just yet, then there's things that you could do to help yourself. There's confiding in a friend, talking to somebody. Writing can be very therapeutic, keeping a journal, or even just really giving yourself some positive messages every day. What do you think?
Exactly. I agree, Munaza. As you mentioned, that the most important point is encouraging someone who is suffering to seek help, because denial is not uncommon when it comes to mental health. And in my opinion, the initial help comes from the family support. Family support plays a very big part in the treatment, because the patient gets that confidence that they have someone who understands what they are going through. There's somebody who's going to be with them in this difficult time. And then comes the professional help, by helping them in understanding and accepting that they need the treatment, especially when it comes to low self-esteem. Because mostly people who suffers from low self-esteem, they have this strong belief that this is how they are and it's not going to change. So here the professionals, doctors, psychotherapists, they play a very important role by letting them know that this is something which can be treated. And Munaza, when we talk about treatment here, it doesn't mean that you'll be just right away put on the medication, but it means talk therapy, psychotherapy, which is the mainstay of the treatment. And if in some cases medications needs to be started, so they are fine and safe to use. So this is very important to counsel the patient about these things, the ways how we treat it, what is the timeline when you start noticing the improvement. Because if we don't treat these initial mental health issues, they can lead to severe mental health issues and sometimes harm to self and others.
And which might be harder to treat, like you said.
Exactly.
And you're right that there are a lot of misconceptions around mental health issues, in even with regards to treatment, prescription medication. There's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to that, certainly. So before we continue, let's hear more about how social media impacts mental health.
Mental health can be defined as our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we can handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through to adulthood. Awareness of mental health has grown dramatically in recent years. However, it appears the more we know about the complexities of the brain, the more we have yet to learn. The brain and how it works has dramatic effects on our bodies and minds. This, in turn, affects our personality and character, and hence our relationships. Islam not only places emphasis on mental well-being in its teachings, but also provides guidance and solutions to this very common ailment. We read in the Holy Quran, Allah burdens not any soul beyond its capacity. Allah Almighty also says, "It is in the remembrance of Allah that hearts find comfort." These verses show that one who holds fast to the rope of Allah will never feel hopeless and distraught. Today we are focusing on some specific forms of mental health issues, namely self-esteem issues. This is particularly relevant in this day and age where we are constantly being bombarded with images of perfection. From selfies to Instagram shots of perfect-looking people with perfect lives and perfect destinations, it would be difficult not to feel inadequate. These images, alongside the need for likes, which are a staple feature in many social media platforms, are leading us to constantly seek gratification from others. How is this affecting our and our children's sense of self-worth? According to research, not only are people with low self-esteem more affected by negative comments on their posts, but those people who lack a sense of purpose are more greatly affected. Therefore, it is vital for our self-esteem and sense of self-worth to constantly be reminded of our true and real purpose in life. This reminds me of a beautiful quote by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV, may Allah have mercy upon him, referring to Waqfino children, "You were born for a great purpose at a magnificent time."
No, indeed, social media does have a very profound influence and does, in fact, impact our mental health. Let's switch to another topic now, stigma. Stigma is when somebody views you in a negative light because you may have a distinguishing characteristic or a trait that's thought to be or may actually be a disadvantage. And unfortunately, stigma and discrimination in a way is very common when it comes to people who are suffering from mental health conditions. And there is a stigma related to seeking treatment or counseling for these issues. Where do we begin to educate ourselves and others when it comes to mental health challenges? If I may ask you, Nazia.
Okay, so yes, as you mentioned, stigma is a very important factor when it comes to mental health, which doesn't let people accept their illness or their issue. So stigma doesn't always come from others. sometimes mistakenly we start to think that our condition is a sign of a personal weakness and we should be able to handle it without help. So, in my opinion, seeking counseling, having positive self talk, connecting to the other people who are suffering through this mental health illnesses is a very good way to gain that strength to stand against the stigma. And educational TV programs, social media messages, doctors, teachers, everybody can play a very big and strong role in educating the people about the mental health issues. And Munaza, when we talk about educating people, it doesn't just mean that we are educating the people who are suffering through the mental health illnesses or issues, but it means that educating the whole society. So that if somebody come across someone who is suffering through the mental health issue, they should be able to help them in a proper way, rather making it a big issue or stigma for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. What do you think, Roomana?
When it comes to stigma associated with mental health issues, we need to end the silence and we need to speak up, so we can make people be aware of the importance of treating mental health issues, because mental health issues have as much of an impact on our health and our well-being as physical health issues. We need to educate people and we need to increase awareness about the importance of mental health issues. When we are talking about stigma, it's not just the patients themselves. Sometimes it's the family members and their loved ones who care for the family members, but when it comes to mental health issues, they would avoid talking about it, or they would ignore it, or they would feel ashamed about the presence of mental health issue in the family. There's one more aspect of the stigma that I would just like to point out. That although it's very important to discuss these things openly to remove the stigma attached to it, at the same time, not everybody might be comfortable talking about it openly and in open forums. So I want to remind everybody out there who might be struggling with some mental health issues and they're feeling not comfortable talking about it openly. Your physicians, your psychologists, and your therapists, all the professionals are legally and ethically bound to keep all your personal information totally confidential. So when you're seeking help, be confident that it will be all kept completely confidential.
Jazakallah for that very important message, Roomana Sahiba. Now, in the Holy Quran, Allah Almighty says, "Verily, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find comfort." So, zikr, prayer, meditation, remembrance of God, these are all things that can help us bring peace and comfort to ourselves. So, let's talk about how faith can be a source of therapy for somebody who might be struggling with these mental health challenges. How does Islam guide us to address these emotions? If I may start with you, Nazia Sahiba.
Yes, Munaza, psychology in Islam is used in everyday practices in the form of spiritualism. So Islam values the importance of a good mental health and emotional well-being. And Quran can be used as a guidance for those who are suffering through the emotional disturbances. And thousands of years before the Western psychology has been constructed, the psychological language of Quran has described this internal turmoil and destructive thoughts as nafsul ammara. And Quran has given a very great guidance how to overcome this inner turmoil and bring the self to peace, like in a form of a nafsul mutmainna. Okay? And I believe, Munaza, that gratitude, shukr, has a very strong connection in helping getting rid of these negative emotions. If our heart is full of shukr and gratitude, we can be the happiest person on this earth, right? All the negative emotions will be gone. We'll be happy for what we have. And shukr and gratitude is a treatment for the sadness and the materialism.
And that's why indeed Islam places such a heavy emphasis on sabr and shukr, right?
Exactly.
Gratefulness and patience and steadfastness, because it does elevate the status of our thinking and our outlook. Would you like to add something, Roomana Saiba?
Yes, being Muslims, we are so fortunate. We have this opportunity to turn to Allah 5 times daily, to be able to thankful and for the comfort and peace of heart. As Hazur Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasir Aziz said, that feelings of sadness and depression are less common among people who offer their prayers and tahajjud regularly. I feel that Islam puts so much emphasis in having a balanced approach to life and having a balance in our emotions too, and to avoid all sorts of extremes of emotions. It tells us to be kind to ourselves, and it also teaches us to be kind to others. It tells us to avoid suspicion, and it goes by saying that suspecting unnecessarily is a sin. Islam also teaches us to help our brothers and sisters in their testing time and struggles. Um, Having a strong faith in Allah is definitely one of the biggest aspects. When you have a belief and a faith that Allah is with you and He'll not leave you alone and He will be with you in all your tests and trials, you definitely can deal with all the challenges better.
Absolutely. And I like your point about Islam being a balanced faith because, you know, along with seeking professional help, we also encourage people to seek the fadl, the grace and the favor and the help from Allah Almighty. And that being said, you know, we're not saying that somebody who's suffering from depression is going to pray and automatically get better. But the prayer and the medicine go hand in hand, as the promised Messiah salam has said, that dua and dawa go hand in hand. You know, indeed, Islam has provided guidance for us at every step in our life. And as the Holy Prophet ﷺ has said, that there is no disease that Allah has created except that He has also created its cure. Now, I feel like living up to the standards that society has created for women today has led to a huge spike in the number of women, young women and older, who are battling and struggling with these self-esteem challenges. What are your thoughts about this, Roomana Saiba?
Yes, Munaza, indeed, this is a challenge that the women of this age is facing. Whether it be young women, teenage girls who are exposed to these images of perfection on media, and they look at themselves then and they get disappointed and they think that they're not good enough. Or it be working women who are working hard inside the house and outside, and they still have doubts about their abilities and they have that guilt that they're not doing enough. Or it be women in community, generally speaking, who can't help but compare themselves to other women in the society, and they think they don't have that perfect life that others seem to have. We all have to remind ourselves that this life is not a competition about who have more money or a bigger house or more perfect life. This is not the purpose of life. And if we start chasing all these unreal goals, nobody would be ever able to have the happiness and contentment in our life. We all have to remind ourselves that it starts with me. And if I start thinking positive today, and if I give myself my due credit and I'm a bit more kind to myself, it will not only have a positive impact on me, but it will also have a positive ripple effect on people around me, my family, my spouse, my children, my colleagues. All would benefit from my positive thinking. I want to add a little tip here that could help all of us in cultivating the habit of positive thinking. If we all start reminding ourselves at the end of the day about 3 positive things, 3 big or small positive things that we were able to achieve in a day, or as I call, 3 good for me things. For example, I was able to show up at my work or in my school on time today. Good for me. I had a healthy meal today, or I fed my family a home cooked meal. Good for me. If I was able to offer my prayers on time, I finished my assignment on time, I was able to help someone who needed help. Good for me. So if we all start reminding ourselves about these positive things and end our days on the positive notes, this will definitely help us focusing in positives in the life, and will help us with dealing with negative thinking and low self-esteem issues. It will definitely, inshallah, bring happiness and gratitude in our life.
Inshallah. That's actually a very, very useful tip for anyone and everyone. Really, a little pat on the back goes a long way. And, you know, who doesn't need that at the end of a long day? While we're on this topic, let's hear a little bit about our pressures about our physical appearance can impact our mental well-being?
I think appearance does have a huge reflection in your self-esteem. Growing up, my mom always told me that you want to look how you want to feel. So if I put effort into my appearance, I tend to be more confident. I tend to want to go out and do things more. The times that I didn't feel so good about myself mentally were also times that I didn't take care of myself physically. So I find that there really is a strong connection between your physical and mental health.
Indeed, our physical appearance, the way that we present ourselves, does go a long way towards influencing how we feel.
Exactly.
It's a very true point.
Mhm.
Jazakallah for sharing so much valuable advice with us today. And this brings us to almost at the end of our program. Any last thoughts before we go?
In the end, I would like this message to all the people who are suffering through the mental health issues, that believe in yourself and stand for yourself, and talk to somebody whom you can trust, because it's very important to let everything out. Talk to your doctor, seek help and fazl from Allah, because everybody in the society has to do their work to bring a change, to stand up against the stigma regarding the mental health. May Allah help us to bring this awareness regarding the mental health issues. Amen.
Inshallah, inshallah. Roomana Saiba?
Yes, as Nazia has summarized it very beautifully, I would just like to add one more point. Being Ahmadi Muslims, we are so fortunate. We do not only have ongoing guidance and advice from Quran and Ahadith about how to lead a balanced and positive life, and how to be thankful to Allah for what we have. We are also very fortunate that we have ongoing support and guidance and advice from our beloved Khalifa. And we can always turn to Hazur Anwar for advice in case we're struggling. Actually, writing letters to Hazur is another excellent way to deal with the stress that we can't deal on our own.
Yeah, it can
Exactly.
be therapeutic,
Yes.
indeed.
Mhm.
Indeed. Jazakallah for that, and Jazakallah to our viewers as well. That's all the time we have for today. May Allah Almighty enable us to indeed find true comfort and peace of mind through our connection with our Creator. Ameen. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
हर तरफ फिक्र को दौड़ा के थकाया